Okay, back here on the Metal Command podcast. Let's talk about the band Warlord. As many of you know, I am an avid fan of Warlord. I've loved Warlord for a long time. They are one of those like cult classic bands that, you know, every few years they'd put a record out. I mean, they really, in the past, didn't play tons of shows. I have always thought Bill Samus was a phenomenal guitar player and songwriter. I did follow his other band, Lordy and Guard, as well back in the day. But obviously, Bill, sadly and unfortunately, passed away not long ago. But the band decided to continue. They put a brand new album out called Free Spirit Soar. It has some of Bill's guitar parts on there. It has a lot of his music on there. Some of it played by Bill. Some of it played by the rest of the guys in the band. And of course, as many of you who follow the podcast, as many of you know, I had Mark Zonder on the show. He's the original drummer, the only original member in the band. And then, of course, Giles Lavery, who sings for the band as well. Giles, of course, singing with Alcatraz. I believe he's going to be singing on the next Jack Starr album. Giles has also done a lot of really cool stuff, like, you know, co-hosting shows at the Metal Voice. He's worked for labels. He has managed bands. I mean, he's done pretty much everything in the music business, so he's a pretty knowledgeable guy. And actually, that interview was really cool. But I had Giles on at one point, and then I had Mark Zonder on at one point. And now that I've had a chance to revisit the Warlord catalog, which has all been reissued by High Roller Records, who did a great job reissuing all of those albums, I have had a chance to really listen to their new album, Free Spirit Soar, for most of the year. And the more I listen to that album, the more I think to myself, man, I think these guys should continue to record albums and tour. Now, hear me out. In the very beginning, when they announced this record, there was a lot of people hemming and hawing and protesting and, you know, saying that they shouldn't be doing that because Bill passed away, and when Bill passed away, the band should end. And then later on, Giles, or Mark, I think it was Giles, in an interview, posted a lot of the emails where Bill Samus was telling them, hey, you should continue the band, take my music and run with it, keep the thing going, don't let it die, essentially. And I think that shut a lot of haters up. And then what shut even more haters up is the fact that the album was really, really good and really did justice to the legacy in the past that Warlord has built up over the past, say 40 years. However, the more I listen to it, the more I think to myself, man, I would love to hear more records by this band. And they should continue to tour, because Warlord was really not a band that was playing tons of shows back in the day. So I think Bill's music is great, and I think it really needs to continue to be brought to an audience for as long as possible. Now, I had, when I did have Mark and Giles on, one of the things we did talk about to debunk the whole, the band should die and, because Bill passed away, I'm going to let Mark reflect on that a little bit for some of you here, and I want you to check this interview segment out where Mark talks about continuing on without Bill Samus. Check this out.
It was a difficult decision, but it wasn't a difficult decision. And people ask me all the time, well, Mark, when Bill first passed away, he said, oh, there's not going to be any more Warlord, and blah, blah, blah. Well, of course, a guy passes away. What am I going to do? Hey, 2 weeks from now, Warlord's going on tour, and hey, I had this record I kept to myself, and we're going to put it out. I just needed some time. And then Giles basically came around, and I've known Giles forever, for a long time, and, he's managed various bands, and, the Warlord stuff, he sang with Warlord, he did a song on one of the albums, did the live stuff, and he just said, hey, how do you feel about, just taking control of this, and let's go do this, And I always thought that, and Bill had told me flat out, hey, because he was people don't know, he was very ill. He was ill for a good 20 years or so. I remember recording Rising Out of the Ashes in New York before I was even married in the late 1990s. Mm-hmm. And he comes in with a big satchel of drugs that he had to take he had a gastro problem, which is, when that happens, you just can't even get out of bed. So he said, hey, just go get another guitar player. man. He goes, just make sure he plays what he's supposed, and just go play. He goes, I want the music to spread. I want the music to be alive. And you got to remember, Warlord didn't do 40 world tours or anything like that, so it's not like we exhausted the live thing. I used to love playing that stuff. I mean, I still love playing it. So also, when Giles came to me, he showed me these emails that Bill had sent to him saying, hey, if something happens and I'm not here, I want you guys to take it and move it forward. Because Bill and Giles were a lot better friends than Bill and I were. Bill and I were business partners and music guys, and we had the ultimate respect for each other. Never had an argument, which is kind of interesting in a band. Never an argument. Not even a disagreement, really. We just respected each other. You do what you do, I do what I do, and we're good. But him and Giles were like buddies. Giles would go there for months at a time and just hang out. And so Giles really knew him, per se. And when he said that he wanted us to keep going with the stuff and to put it out and everything, I didn't have a problem with it. What people really have to realize, besides getting over themselves, is the fact that the guy died. We did not kick him out of the band. We didn't hijack something. He died. He's got his wishes. Tells Giles in emails, hey, take my stuff and go play it. He tells me, get another guitar player and just go play my stuff. I didn't want to do that when he was still alive. I didn't think that was right. So there we are. And, Giles, Eric, the guitar player, and Jimmy Waldo, the keyboard player, are the guys who really did the heavy lifting. Philip and I sat back and played the drums and the bass. We went through stuff that I had in my computer that Bill and I had been working on since like 2016. Because after we played that last gig in Chania, that festival, we talked about going back and doing a Deliver Us style 3 to 4 minute rock songs, not the big epic, not the big keyboards, just, old school metal. And so we started putting stuff together, and he was just so sick he couldn't get it to the album state. So I had a bunch of stuff in my computer, his actual guitar tracks, there was other stuff on tapes and stuff that we pulled that Giles had, that Bill had given Giles, and they basically put it together. Is it 105% all Bill? No, because certain things were like ideas. Certain things were, just 4 bars of something maybe. So they did a lot of heavy lifting to put it together and put it in song form. The whole idea behind it, everybody going into it knew this has to be Warlord and this has to be Bill. This isn't the new reggae version of Warlord. This is not the new metal version of Warlord. Okay, we have to keep it there. Eric, the guitar player, had studied Bill. He knew the whole Greek thing that Bill was doing. He studied his sound. He copped all those old, nasty 1980s Electric Mistress, Strat, Marshall making a whole bunch of noise kind of sound. And Jimmy did the same thing. Went back and studied all the keyboards. That's a Mini Moog, and that's this. So coming together, the one of the main concerns was just having it sound with the Warlord sound. Just like we did back in the day, we're not sampling drums. I kind of approached this how I would have in the 1980s. I didn't get into it too heavy and too deep and really make it proggy or try to make it like what I would do probably now with something to try to be creative. It's keeping it in that same 80s metal vein, and I think we really accomplished that.
And that's Mark talking about his relationship with Bill and talking about the fact Bill wanted to keep the band going. Now, one of the things I talked about with Giles, I said, hey, will you consider putting out another record? And this is what Giles Lavery, the singer of Warlord, had to say about that.
Now that you've put this album out, have you thought about it? Has anyone asked you, and I don't know if they have, of even after this album comes out, of making another record in the future? Or is this maybe going to be it and you just keep playing live and playing the songs?
I think it will really depend on how well this is received. If the record does well and people like what we did, there's no reason not to do it. Now, there's at least one more. There's still some Bill stuff, and I don't want to get to a point where we're scratching the bottom of the barrel. I mean, there has to be kind of decent amount of material to draw from. Again, and I don't know. I mean, it's again something me and Mark would have to talk about. How we how we would go about doing it, what it would be. It's, I mean, there's a few people have even asked, would you write some songs in the Warlord style? And I'm kind of, I'm really kind of 50-50 on that to a degree, because Bill's music was a big part. I still like to have his spirit on any Warlord record is important to me. I mean, I'm not saying if someone wrote a song that was like, damn, this is like, without being a complete copy, this is like in that vein of the Deliver Us album, and it'll be like, wow, okay. I mean, again, we're all just talking very, very, very hypothetically here. So,
yeah,
before everyone starts getting out the pitchforks and burning torches and yet again. So, who knows? It really depends. It depends on what the future holds, really.
Well, it's not something that's out of the question. I ask that because, and the reason I say that is that I think, like I said, I think the record is very good. I think most people are going to like it. I think a lot of the doubters are going to like it. Obviously you're always going to have those people that are, no matter what you do, they're going to say it's not Warlord or whatever. But
tribute band or whatever.
Yeah, that kind of thing. But I think, and I'll just give you my personal observation, I think the way this record came out, I really think you should do another one. So that's just me. I'm just going by the vibe and the feel I get from this album. And, the one thing that I get from, obviously Mark is still there. Mark is, from what I know of him, I've had him on my show a couple times. He's not someone that's going to do something half-assed, as we say here, right? And I think that ultimately, if Mark is going to put something out, you mentioned the A to Z album, it's going to be pretty damn good. I mean, that's just how I view him.
I mean, with a lot of bands, when you say, well, who's the original guy? And you go, well, they've still got the original drummer. A lot of people kind of think of, I don't know, like the Guess Who or something, where it's like the least musically contributing member of the band, and it's almost like having no originals because it's just the drummer. Mark's not that drummer. If you take any Warlord song and you were to put another drummer on those tracks, it doesn't sound like Warlord. I mean, Lordy and Guard didn't sound like Warlord. But you put Mark's drums on those tracks and all of a sudden it does. Mark's a very musically involved drummer, and his style of drumming, it's almost like Neil Peart with Rush. It's a intrinsic part of the music. It's not just a drummer and you could put another drummer in his place and it would be more or less the same, like a lot of bands do, change drummers. Like Accept, they can change drummer 4 more times, it'll still sound like Accept, because that's not where the sound of Accept is coming from. But the sound of Warlord was Bill and Mark. And Mark is a huge part of the Warlord sound. So in our case, it's very much different,
Yeah. It's kind of like, I'll give people an example. When Dave Lombardo wasn't in Slayer anymore, they sounded a lot different, right? I mean, he just had an own distinct style. So it's probably the best analogy I could give as far as, when it comes, because some drummers, you get them out of the band, the sound is a lot different. And I think that's kind of the same kind of thing you're describing. If you were to put someone in the band aside from Mark, because Mark does have a pretty interesting style of playing, and even with like him in Fate's Warning, I mean, I think Fate's Warning sounded better when he joined the band. That's my opinion. But
wow, yeah, I mean, no disrespect to anyone. I mean, I'm whatever disclaimer I should put there, but wow, I mean, when Mark joined Fate's Warning, to me that's my Fate's Warning.
Yeah,
parallels, perfect symmetry, inside out. Man, that's my Fate's Warning right there.
Yeah, pleasant shade of gray.
Yep, exactly.
Giles Lavery talking about, would there ever be a possible second album after Free Spirit Soar? One of the things he does talk about, though, is, hey, he doesn't want to go for scraps of songs to put an album out. I understand that mentality. I understand that thought process. And, again, I understand that the songs have to be right and the vibe has to be there. Here's the thing. I am going to say that I think they should put not only another album out, but I think they should continue putting albums out when possible. Because I think they have the right guys in the band. Giles obviously knows what the songs and what kind of style sounds like Warlord and what kinds of songs would pretty much live up to the legacy that Bill Samos started. And folks, just because Bill is gone doesn't mean they can't continue. Riot, for example, I don't think they have any original members, and they continue to put out solid releases. They are keeping the legacy of that music alive. Riot's been around for a very long time. And they are still putting out quality albums. Stradivarius. Timo Tolkki's been out of that band for a long time. They continue to put out good albums. In fact, I think some of these new albums are the best ones they've ever done. Granted, Timo Cotapelto's been in the band now for, about 30 years. But they still put out quality albums. The point I'm trying to make is that I would love to see Warlord continue. I would love to see them tour as much as possible to promote that music and to keep Bill's music out there. Maybe even make the band a little bit bigger. Now, you're going to get those people that are going to say, oh my God, it's a cash grab. And these guys, first of all, because somebody said cash grab, I laughed because it's not like Warlord is playing huge arenas. It's not like these guys are making millions of dollars playing this music. They're playing it because they love the music and they want to keep it out there for everybody to enjoy. Not only from the live perspective, but for the fact they put this last record out. So for me personally, Free Spirit Soar, definitely a top 10 album for me, by the way, folks. Forgot to mention that. I think it's a great record. It's a great release. I would love to see the band continue to put out records if possible, if schedules allow, if the vibe is right. That is just my input as a fan, as somebody that likes the band. Keep it going, folks. That's really all I have to say about it. Hey everybody, Tony here from the Metal Command Podcast. Again, I appreciate your support. Since 1998, I have hosted this show in one form or another, starting off in radio and now in the podcast format. Again, thanks for watching, and if you like what you see and hear on this show, by all means, please hit the subscribe button, hit the little bell to be notified anytime I do post a video, and if you see this program on any other form of social media, please give me a follow there. Again, I always appreciate your support.